You are done here. Get out! No, please.
The elevator doors slid open with a soft, gentle chime. And for a moment, it felt like the whole floor stopped breathing. Every head turned. A tall man in a dark gray suit stepped out slowly, his shoes tapping against the marble floor like a quiet drumbeat. His face was calm, but his eyes were sharp, moving across the room until they found the one person he had come for. A young woman in a cleaner's uniform, standing frozen beside an overturned mop bucket, tears still wet on her cheeks. He said her name softly. Just one word. Amara. Nobody in that room moved. Nobody breathed. Because only moments before, everyone had watched a woman named Ifeoma scream at this same young lady, calling her useless, calling her lazy, telling her she did not belong in that building. And now, the most powerful man in the entire company, the owner himself, was walking straight toward her, with his arms already opening. To understand how this moment came to be, we have to go back. Subscribe to this channel, follow every part until the very end, and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. Before the shouting. Before the tears. Before anyone knew the truth. 3 months earlier, in a large office on the top floor of Okafor Holdings, a father sat behind his desk, looking at his daughter with tired, worried eyes. He told her, gently, that he was not doing this to hurt her. He was doing it because he loved her too much to watch her get hurt again. Amara stood near the window, arms folded, refusing to look at him. She asked him if he understood how strange his plan sounded. Turning her into a cleaner, just to prove a point. He told her he understood exactly how it sounded. But it was, he said, the only way anyone would ever look at her and truly see her, not his money. She turned to face him sharply. She said that wasn't fair. He asked her gently if it really wasn't. He reminded her that every man who had come to their home in the last 2 years had known exactly who her father was, long before he ever shook her hand. How would she ever know if someone loved her, or loved what her father could give them? Amara went quiet for a long moment. She hated that he had a point. Finally, she agreed. 3 months. A new name. A new face to the world. Nobody in that building would know who she really was. Not even the manager who hired her. Her father agreed. Nobody would know, he said. Only one woman in human resources would be told that someone had been placed there under his instruction, but even she would not know it was his own daughter. She would simply believe she was doing him a personal favor for a distant relative. Amara exhaled slowly and asked him, quietly, what would happen if something went wrong. Her father stood, walked around his desk, and placed both hands gently on her shoulders. He told her that if she truly needed him, he would walk through that door himself. But only then. Not before. She nodded slowly. Neither of them knew yet just how much those words would come to matter. The next morning, Amara arrived at Okafor Holdings wearing a plain gray uniform, her hair tied back, a small name tag on her chest that simply read Amara. Her real first name, and nothing else. No last name. No history. Just a young woman looking for work. The cleaning supervisor, a heavy-set woman named Ifeoma, looked her up and down without a hint of warmth. She told Amara she was late, even though Amara had arrived 5 minutes early. When Amara tried to explain, Ifeoma cut her off completely. In her department, she said, they were never late, never slow, and never, ever soft. Did Amara understand? Amara said yes, ma'am. And with that, she was sent to the 4th floor, to clean a bathroom that should have already been finished an hour before she'd even arrived. By midday, Amara had scrubbed 3 bathrooms, mopped 2 long hallways, and emptied more trash bins than she could count. Her back ached in places she never knew could ache. She thought quietly about her soft bed at home, about her father's driver, waiting outside every single morning, about the breakfast she never once had to prepare for herself. And she pushed those thoughts away, almost ashamed of how quickly comfort had become something she simply expected. An older cleaner named Blessing, who had worked in that building for nearly 10 years, noticed Amara struggling to lift a heavy cart near the stairwell, and quietly stepped in to help her. She told Amara that the first week is always the hardest. You either get used to Ifeoma, she said, or you don't, and you leave, just like all the others before you. Amara asked her if Ifeoma treated everyone that way. Blessing said simply, everyone who cannot fight back. That, she said, is the only kind of power some people ever learn how to hold. Amara said nothing. But she carried those words with her for the rest of that long day. Later, while wiping down a mirror in the executive washroom, Amara overheard two voices drifting in from the hallway outside. One of them was Toby, the nephew of a board member, a young man known around the office for doing very little actual work. He was asking if anyone had heard that the boss had some secret relatives starting in the building. The second voice belonged to Ifeoma. She laughed and called the newcomer some poor cousin from the village. She said Mr. Okafor was far too kind, especially considering his real daughter was somewhere abroad, living like a queen, never lifting a single finger. Amara's hand froze against the mirror. She wanted to laugh and cry at exactly the same time. If only they knew. But she said nothing. She simply picked up her cart and quietly moved on to the next room. That was the moment the tension truly began to build. Because dramatic irony, as it turns out, can be both a cruel and a strangely beautiful thing. We already knew the truth. Amara already knew the truth. But everyone around her did not. And that gap between what we knew and what they believed was only going to grow wider with each passing day. At lunchtime, Amara sat alone at the edge of the busy staff cafeteria, quietly picking at a small plate of rice. She didn't even notice someone had sat down across from her until he spoke. He told her she looked like she needed some company. His name tag read Kelvin, from the junior accounts department. He had kind eyes and an easy, warm smile. Amara told him quickly that she was fine, embarrassed by how tired she must have looked. He told her she didn't have to be fine. The first week, he said, is always the hardest. Ifeoma had been rough with the last 3 cleaners too. It wasn't just her. Amara looked up, surprised. She asked if he had really noticed that. He said simply that he noticed a lot of things. Most people, he added, just don't expect anyone to notice them back. And for the first time that entire day, Amara smiled. A real one. He studied her for a moment, and told her she didn't look like someone who had done this kind of work before. Her heart skipped. She asked him what he meant. He laughed softly and told her it was the way she held the mop, like it was a stranger she had only just met. She laughed too, quietly relieved that his observation had landed somewhere harmless. She told him maybe she was simply new at it. He shrugged and said maybe. Or maybe, he said, she had a whole life before this one that she didn't talk about. Everyone here did, he added gently. And he wouldn't ask if she didn't want to tell him. She thanked him quietly, and she meant it far more than he could ever have known. Across the cafeteria, Toby watched the two of them together with narrowed, jealous eyes. He muttered to another coworker that Kelvin was always trying to play the hero for the cleaning staff. Some men, he said, simply had no standards. If only Toby had known that his careless words were about to become one of the biggest mistakes of his career. Over the following 2 weeks, small moments quietly built between Amara and Kelvin. A shared laugh in the hallway. Him saving her a seat at lunch. Her secretly leaving an extra sandwich on his desk on the nights he worked late. Nothing loud. Nothing dramatic. Just 2 people slowly becoming important to one another, without either one of them knowing the full truth about the other. But not everything in Amara's days was gentle. Ifeoma's cruelty only grew sharper as the weeks went on. One afternoon, Ifeoma pointed at a completely spotless section of floor, and told Amara she had missed a spot. Do it again, she said. Amara tried to explain that she had already cleaned it. Ifeoma simply repeated herself. Do it. Again. Amara knelt down and wiped the very same clean tile a second time, quietly swallowing the burning feeling rising in her throat. This, she realized, was humiliation by design. Ifeoma did not simply dislike her. Ifeoma enjoyed having someone beneath her to control. It was during one of these long, quiet evening shifts that Amara noticed something strange. While emptying trash near the finance department, late one evening, she saw Ifeoma quickly sliding papers into her handbag. Papers marked petty cash reconciliation. Amara paused near the doorway, watching quietly as Ifeoma altered numbers on a printed sheet before locking it away in a drawer. Amara's pulse quickened. For a moment, she considered walking straight into that room and asking Ifeoma directly what she was doing. But something stopped her. A memory of her father's voice, calm and steady, once telling her that the loudest reaction is rarely the wisest one. So instead, she stood very still in the shadow of the doorway and watched. She said nothing. She simply memorized the date and the drawer number and quietly walked away. She did not confront Ifeoma. She did not gossip about what she had seen. Instead, that same night, she quietly typed an anonymous report through the company's internal compliance email. The very same email her father had once told her to use, only if she ever truly needed to raise a concern without revealing exactly who she was. She sent the report, closed her laptop, and sat there for a long moment with her heart pounding in her chest. She did not know yet just how much that single, quiet decision would come to matter. A few days later, Kelvin found Amara sitting outside the building during her break, her eyes red from crying. He asked her gently what had happened. She told him it was nothing. Just a family issue. She said she was fine. He told her softly that it didn't look fine at all. She hesitated, and then told him a half version of the truth. That she needed money urgently, for a family emergency, without ever saying whose emergency it really was. It was a small lie, built quietly on top of a much bigger one, and it made her stomach twist with guilt. The very next morning, an envelope appeared on top of her cleaning cart. Inside was cash. Not a small amount either. Enough to matter deeply to someone living on a cleaner's wage. Beside it was a small folded note. It read simply, "You don't have to carry everything alone." Signed K. Amara later learned that Kelvin had given up his own performance bonus that month, just to help her. A bonus he had been quietly saving for over a year. She sat alone in the stairwell and cried. Not from sadness this time, but from something far more complicated. Guilt. Gratitude. And a growing fear that when the truth finally came out, he would feel betrayed, rather than touched. If you were hoping for a warm resolution here, you may have to wait just a little longer. Because the story was about to turn sharply darker. Toby had never liked how close Kelvin and the cleaner had become. Jealous of the attention, and eager to prove his own importance in the office, he waited quietly for his opportunity. It arrived on a Thursday morning, when an important supplier file went missing from the shared archive room. A room Amara had cleaned the night before. Toby told Ifeoma loudly, making sure everyone nearby could hear, that Amara had been the last one in that room. He claimed he had seen her carrying papers out. Amara told him, her voice shaking, that she had not taken anything. Ifeoma snapped at her, demanding to know where the file was then. Amara said she didn't know. She had simply cleaned the room, and left. She hadn't touched anything on the shelves. Toby folded his arms with a satisfied smirk and called it convenient. The file disappears, he said, the very same night she's in there alone, and now suddenly she knows nothing. From the edge of the gathering crowd, Kelvin spoke up, saying that wasn't proof of anything. But his voice was quickly drowned out by the murmuring that had already begun among the onlookers. Toby raised his voice further, so more people would hear. People like her, he said, come from nothing, and when they see something valuable lying around, they take their chance. It happens all the time. Amara felt her face burn with anger and humiliation. She told him he knew nothing about where she came from. A small crowd had gathered near the archive room by now. Analysts. Assistants. Even a few managers, drawn in by the noise. Amara felt the weight of every single eye on her, the same feeling she had felt weeks earlier, except now it was so much worse. Now, there was an accusation attached to it. Ifeoma announced loudly that she was calling security. And after that, Amara would be finished there. No references. No severance. Nothing. People like her, Ifeoma said coldly, always think they can get away with things, because they believe no one is watching. Amara's voice broke as she pleaded that she had not touched that file. Ifeoma told her, coldly, to save it. She was fired. Effective immediately. Kelvin pushed forward through the small crowd, telling Ifeoma to wait, that none of this made any sense, that Amara wouldn't do something like this. Ifeoma warned him sharply to stay out of it, unless he wanted trouble of his own. The room fell completely silent. Amara stood alone in the very center of it, humiliated, cornered, and utterly alone. A young woman who, in that single moment, looked like she had nothing and no one. And that is exactly when the elevator doors opened. The sound of that soft chime cut through the tension like a blade. Everyone turned at once. A tall man in a dark suit stepped out, and his presence alone seemed to change the very air in the room. Ifeoma's mouth opened, then closed again. Toby took a small step backward, without even realizing he had moved. The man's eyes swept past everyone else, and landed only on the young woman standing in the cleaner's uniform. He said her name. Amara. For a moment, nobody understood. Then Ifeoma's face went pale, as the pieces slowly, horribly, came together in her mind. Amara whispered the word Papa, and the tears she had been holding back all morning finally fell, though this time, not from humiliation. From relief. Her father crossed the room in a few long strides and pulled his daughter into his arms. He told her softly that he was here now. He was here. The silence that followed was the loudest silence that office had ever known. Slowly, he turned to face Ifeoma. His voice was calm, but unmistakably firm. He told her that she had called security to remove his daughter, accusing her of theft. Would she like to explain that to him directly, he asked, or should he simply show her the footage from the archive room camera, which clearly showed a missing storage box, misplaced by the evening shift, and stolen by absolutely no one? Ifeoma's face drained of every last bit of color. She stammered that she had not known. He told her, quietly, that no, she had not known. Because she had never bothered to ask. She had never checked the footage. She had simply decided that the cleaner must be guilty, because it was easy to blame her. He let those words settle heavily over the room. There was something else, he continued. 3 weeks earlier, an anonymous report had been sent through the company's compliance system, detailing altered numbers in the petty cash reconciliation, along with a specific date and a specific drawer location. Their internal audit team had since confirmed the discrepancy entirely. Would Ifeoma like to guess who had sent that report? Ifeoma said nothing at all. Her hands trembled visibly at her sides. His daughter had sent it, he said. The very same woman Ifeoma had humiliated, every single day, for 3 long months. The very same woman she had just tried to have removed from this building, in front of everyone. Amara had every opportunity to expose her the moment she witnessed what she'd done. She chose instead to report it quietly, through the proper channel, without ever seeking revenge. That, he said, told him everything he needed to know about his daughter's character. And Ifeoma's actions today told him everything he needed to know about hers. He turned slightly toward Toby, who was trying, and failing, to disappear quietly into the crowd. He told him that spreading accusations without ever checking the facts, simply to embarrass someone he saw as beneath him, meant he was no longer needed at this company either. Toby started to protest that he hadn't meant it that way. Mr. Okafor told him firmly that he had meant every single word. He had heard him say it himself. People like her. He asked Toby to say that sentence again, slowly, and tell the room exactly which people he had meant. Toby said nothing. There was nothing left for him to say. The silence in that room was almost unbearable. Somewhere near the back, a young analyst whispered quietly to a colleague, asking if she was really his daughter. The whole time? Kelvin stood completely frozen, staring at Amara as though he were seeing her for the very first time. He said her name slowly, almost to himself. Amara Okafor. The owner's daughter. Amara stepped toward him, her eyes pleading, asking him to let her explain. He told her she didn't need to explain anything. but his voice was tight and difficult to read. He looked down for a long moment, and then back up at her. He told her he had given her money because he thought she needed it. He had thought he was helping someone who had nothing. And she, he said, shaking his head, had everything. Amara told him, softly, that she had everything except what he had given her. He hadn't known who she was, and he had helped her anyway. Did he understand how rare that was? Everyone else in her life had always known exactly who she was, long before they ever decided how to treat her. He hadn't. He had been kind to her when it cost him something, and he had absolutely nothing to gain from it. Kelvin looked away, his jaw tight, clearly overwhelmed by all of it. Her father, watching quietly, finally spoke. He told the young man that he had run this company for 25 years. In that time, he had met hundreds of people who wanted to be close to his daughter, only once they learned who she truly was. Kelvin, he said, was the very first one he had ever heard of who had been kind to her before he had any reason to be. Kelvin looked up uncertain. That, Mr. Okafor said quietly, meant something to him. More than Kelvin could possibly know. Ifeoma, humiliated and desperate, tried one final time. She said she had worked there for 6 years. She had a family. Please. Mr. Okafor told her, quietly, that in 6 years she had never once treated the people beneath her with basic decency. That, he said, was not a mistake he could simply overlook, no matter how long she had worked there. Security escorted both Ifeoma and Toby out of the building that very same afternoon. The staff who remained stood in stunned silence, watching the story they thought they had fully understood, rewrite itself completely, right in front of their eyes. That evening, Amara found Kelvin sitting alone on the very same steps outside the building where she had once cried in front of him weeks before. She told him she wasn't going to apologize for not telling him the truth. She didn't believe she had done anything wrong, wanting to know if someone could care about her without her father's name attached to it. But she was sorry, she said, that he had found out this way. Kelvin was quiet for a long moment. He told her he wasn't upset that she was rich. He was upset that he had almost let himself believe money was the only thing that mattered, only to discover it wasn't her who had nothing. It was him, quietly comparing himself to something that had never even been real. She told him that he had given up his own bonus for someone he had believed had nothing. That, she said, was not nothing. That was everything. He looked at her carefully, searching her face for any trace of pity or performance, and found none at all. Just her. Tired, honest, and finally free of the disguise she had worn for 3 long months. He admitted he kept thinking about that very first day at lunch. She had looked so lost. He had thought he was the one comforting her. He hadn't known she was the only person in that entire building who could have had him fired with a single phone call, and she had never once acted like it. She told him she had never wanted power over him. She had only wanted to know what it felt like to be chosen for nothing but herself. Her whole life, people had smiled at her because of what her father owned. He was the very first person who had smiled at her because he had actually seen her. He admitted that he had seen her. He just hadn't seen all of her. She told him gently that nobody ever does, at first. That, she said, was exactly what the 3 months had been for. He was quiet for a while, watching the evening traffic pass beyond the gate. Finally, he said he wasn't going to pretend this wasn't strange. Yesterday, he had worked beside a cleaner named Amara. Today, he was sitting beside the daughter of the man who signed his paycheck. That, he said, was a great deal to carry in a single day. She told him softly that he didn't have to carry it alone, echoing the very words he had once written to her. He didn't have to carry everything alone. Did he remember? A small, surprised smile broke across his face. He said that he did remember. He asked her, quietly, what happened now. She smiled, for the first time all day, and told him that now, he got to decide if he still wanted to know her. Not the cleaner. Not the boss's daughter. Just her. Weeks later, at a company event celebrating the promotion of several employees, including Kelvin, who had been offered a leadership position based entirely on his own performance record, not his connection to Amara. The two of them stood together near the entrance, watching the room fill with people who once had no idea who either of them truly were. Mr. Okafor approached them both, raising his glass slightly in their direction. He offered a toast to the people who see others clearly, even when the truth is hidden. Kelvin told him, still slightly nervous in his presence, that he wanted him to know he had never expected anything from Amara. He still didn't. Mr. Okafor smiled, a small, rare smile, the first one since this entire story had begun. He told Kelvin that was exactly why he trusted him near her. The men who expect nothing, he said, are the only ones who truly deserve to be given something. Amara slipped her hand quietly into Kelvin's. And for once, nobody in that room whispered about who she was, or what she owned. They simply saw two people who had found each other honestly, in a place built entirely on appearances, and had somehow survived it. Amara looked at Kelvin, and for the first time since this entire story had begun, there was no fear left in her eyes. Only certainty. And so, the story closes gently here, with a simple truth worth carrying with you. True character does not show itself in how you treat the powerful. It shows itself in how you treat someone who can do absolutely nothing for you. Kindness costs nothing, yet it is worth absolutely everything. And one day, in one way or another, the truth always walks through the door. If this story touched you in any way, we would love for you to subscribe, so you never miss another story like this one. Leave a comment below, and tell us honestly, what would you have done in Amara's place? And if this journey moved you even a little, please share it with someone who might need the reminder that kindness is never, ever wasted. More stories like this one are coming very soon. Stay close. Because the next reveal might just surprise you, even more than this one did.